Greetings and salutations and welcome to Northwest Small Batch Brewing. My name is Steven, and if this is your first time to the channel, take a look around. I do a lot of videos on home brewing, tips, tricks, things I've learned along the way. I try to do little experiments when I'm trying to see, gee, is what that person said really true? Does that really work? Is it as good as they say? I try to do little experiments in here, try things out myself. I do mostly beer, but you'll find cider and some odds and ends like ginger beer and that sort of thing around on my site. So if that is your sort of thing, I'd really appreciate it if you look down and hit the like button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, really helps my channel. And while you're there, you might as well hit subscribe. And that way, you can get notified every time I put out a new video. So tonight, I wanted to revisit how to stop your fermentation. But the elephant in the room. It is, for me, a Monday night. And so I'm having a little bit of shall we say, condensed beer tonight. Here's the deal. This is my little brew Bible that I've been writing notes down and stuff. I don't really use it anymore because I print stuff out from Brewer's Friend and keep my recipes online. But I do have a lot of little notes here. And the funny thing is that I have made notes about pasteurizing. And then I've crossed it off and made another note, crossed it off and made another. In other words, I've tried multiple methods of pasteurizing, and I think I know at this point what your best option is for pasteurizing. What do I mean by pasteurizing? So I'm saying if you want to stop your fermentation because you've got it at the right sweetness level, whether it's a wine or a cider or whatever, and you don't want it to continue to ferment and go dry, you have to somehow stop it from fermenting, and the only way to do that is to somehow kill the yeast. And you can do it with chemicals, which is what a lot of commercial breweries do. However, you can also do it by pasteurizing. The only concern I have with pasteurizing is, does it affect the taste? I've never noticed it in what I've pasteurized, but I can see how theoretically, you're heating up your liquid, which, yeast does not like to be heated up that warm. But you're doing it so quickly that I think the chances of getting an off flavor are just pretty slim. I mean, I've never noticed it. So I've come up with my hopefully last and final method of pasteurizing, and I just want to explain it. It's so simple, I don't really think I need to get out visual aids or anything. So, the first problem with pasteurizing anything that is carbonated especially and sealed up is that once you start heating it, it gets sort of more and more dangerous. The glass itself, all right, you know what happens to glass when it's cold and you suddenly put it into something hot? Right? It can shatter. The shock of that temperature change can shatter it. Because we're talking about bottles that are not like Pyrex. They're just, regular glass. So there's no strength there, and there's potential weaknesses. Anyway, it's a danger. So the first thing I would do, and it seems like it's overkill, but if you've ever pasteurized stuff at home that's carbonated and sealed, you've had the bottle bombs. You've had the explosions of bottles and glass and shrapnel. So you know of what I speak. So what I like to do is run hot water from the tap, and then I just fill up like a pan or whatever, a stock pot with some hot water and put the bottles that I want to pasteurize in it. Obviously, you're limited here to how many bottles you can pasteurize at a time. I really don't recommend doing a huge giant batch. It's hard to control the temperature for everything if you have too big of a batch. So, you know, limit yourself if you can to like, I don't know, 6 or 7 bottles if it's beer size. Wine bottles, you know, maybe a few less because they're going to take up more space anyway. So the reason that you're putting it in the hot water from the tap is that you're just slowly trying to get the bottle itself, the glass, warmed up so that when you're ready to actually start pasteurizing it, there isn't like a huge shock or change in temperature that could shatter the bottle. So I can see doing that twice. You know, while you're waiting for the water to heat up that you're going to pasteurize, maybe you can do this twice where you heat up the water and put the bottles in it, dump it, heat it up. Like I say, it's just basically get the glass sort of to an even temperature and warmed up a little bit. All right, next thing. Old school method is that you basically put all the bottles in like a stock pot, and you fill the stock pot up with water. Well, yeah, you fill it up with water, including one bottle that's open and just has water in it up to the line that you would normally have like beer. That's your tester bottle. And then once you have that, all the water is to the point where it's at least at the same level as all the liquid that's in your bottles, you pull your bottles out. That way you don't have to try to figure out displacement, right? Because if you fill the whole bucket up with water and then put the bottles in, it's going to spill over because it's hard to figure out the displacement. Then you heat up the water so you're going to pasteurize. You don't want to put bottles in there while it's heating because the element gets hotter, right? And that hotter element is going to cause your glass to shatter. So you basically have to heat the water up hotter than you need it to be so that when you put the bottles in, they drop the temperature down, hopefully to the temperature that you want, and then you can take it off the heat and leave it. The problem is if you leave it, the temperature's slowly coming down because it's no longer on the heat, but you're hoping it maintains at least a certain level of heat for a period of time that will kill the yeast, or, as we say, pasteurize it. That's old school. The best way to do this, if you're going to be doing a lot of pasteurizing, which I try not to, but the best way to do it, and there's going to be a second use I'm going to talk about for this method, so you can get a double use out of this method, and that is sous vide. I'm sure everybody knows what that is. It's basically a method of cooking where you put food into a bag, seal it up, and put it into a water bath that's held at an exact temperature for whatever amount of time to cook your food. In this case, instead of having the water on the stove and heating it up and trying to get it higher than you need and bring it back down, you're just going to basically use the sous vide machine to bring your water up to 140 degrees. 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 60 Celsius. Where do I come up with that number? 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 Celsius is the temperature at which yeast dies. There are old school methods that say you need to actually heat it up hotter than that. The reality is that's not true. That's not true. Yeast literally dies at 140 degrees. So if you can get your liquid in your bottles to 140 and hold it there for, say, I'm going to say 10 minutes is usually good, then you're set. You're set. It should be dead. Is it guaranteed? No, but I think you're pretty good chances that you got it. So you bring the sous vide up to 140 degrees. Your water or your bottles should have been warmed already by using hot tap water, so they're not completely cold and they're not going to be shocked. Put the bottles in the sous vide tank, all right? Along with your tester bottle that, remember, has no bottle cap on it. It's just open, but it has water filled up, you know, to the same line you'd have like beer or wine filled in a bottle. Take a little temperature probe. You can get these things at any local store. It's the same kind that you might use if you've been in the culinary institute culinary industry. They have these little pocket thermometers that you can use. It doesn't really matter. Whatever kind of thermometer you want to use, put it into the tester bottle. This is going to allow you to monitor the temperature of the liquid inside the bottle. And you want to use that tester bottle. You want to put the tester bottle the furthest away from the sous vide little heating machine or mechanism, so that way you know if that tester bottle is hitting 140, all the rest of the bottles guaranteed are hitting 140 as well. So you put those in, let the sous vide bring it back up to 140. It shouldn't take long. And then watch the temperature on that tester bottle. When that tester bottle hits 140 degrees, again that's 60 Celsius, you can rest assured that you are now killing yeast. The sous vide is so great, it'll maintain that temperature for you. And so you just wait 10 minutes. Wait 10 minutes, it's killed the yeast, pull the bottles out, gently put them on a towel that's, be gentle with them. Don't shake them up, just be gentle and let them cool down to room temperature on their own, like overnight or whatever. And that's it. They should be shelf stable. You'll still have the carbonation, you'll still have the alcohol, you'll still have the sweetness level that you had it at. Again, like I said, the only thing you might be worried about, although I've never noticed anything, is it's potential that yeast could give some off flavor because you're heating it up like that. But again, I think because you're doing it so quickly, it just doesn't have enough time to really give off a lot of off flavor. So that's how you pasteurize. The most safest, easiest, almost foolproof way, use a sous vide, I think there's a D on there, and bring it up to 140 or 60 Celsius for 10 minutes. Remember, that's not just bringing the water to 140 degrees or 60 Celsius. It's the temperature inside the bottles. So that's why you have the tester in there, so that you can monitor the inside temperature of the bottles. Other than that, I mean, that's it. The only other thing that sometimes comes up when we're talking about this is alcohol evaporating. So, I mean, I have heard of people saying, and this would only work obviously for uncarbonated stuff, but if you had a flat, or a still wine or cider or something that you wanted to pasteurize, I've heard of people just leaving the bottle top off, like not capping it until it's pasteurized. I mean, obviously that'll keep it from exploding, but I'd be so worried about the oxygenation. I mean, I guess there's not a lot of surface space there, but I mean, I just think you're taking an unnecessary risk by doing that. But I have heard of people doing it, and the reason I bring that up is because it brings the question that sometimes come along with that. Well, if you leave your bottles unopened, opened, like non-capped, and you're heating it up to 140 or 60 Celsius, aren't you going to lose the alcohol? And the answer is no, for two reasons. Number one is it only takes about 10 minutes, really, to kill the yeast at that temperature. You're not going to lose the alcohol in 10 minutes. But more than that, ethanol, which is the alcohol that's primary alcohol that's in there, it evaporates at 173-ish Fahrenheit, which is about 78 Celsius. You're not going to raise the temperature that high. You're bringing it to 140 or 60 Celsius and holding it for 10 minutes. So you're never raising the temperature of your brew to a point where alcohol would evaporate off of it. Now, that being said, alcohol does evaporate. I mean, if you leave a glass of whiskey out in an hour and come back, you'll notice a difference in taste. 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. By 6 hours or so, it's going to start noticeably becoming well, I won't say not a great whiskey, but the point is, even when it's not being heated at all, alcohol will be coming off of it. It will be evaporating. So I don't know why you would do this without putting the bottle cap on your brew. I mean, I don't, especially if it's like a still wine that's not carbonated. That's even less dangerous. You know, I find that anything that's carbonated is even more likely to explode than anything else. So I would still cap it if it were me. Yeah, so that's the best way to pasteurize. Use a sous vide, and that way you can set it to 140 degrees and hold it there. And it's not on a hot stove. You're not putting it right on an element or anything. And you know, I almost never pasteurize because I mostly do beer. But when I do I make cider once or twice a year, and sometimes other things. But when I do cider, I make 5 gallons of it, and I put it in my keg. And you know, when it's ready, I put it in my keg, and I force carbonate it, and I back sweeten it, and then I put it in the keg in the refrigerator. So it doesn't really continue fermenting. I mean, it does, but it's so slow that by the time I drink it, it hasn't really changed the sweetness at all. So for me, if I'm going to make cider, I just put it in a keg, stick it in the refrigerator, and have it on tap. But if you don't have that option or you don't want to go that route, you can always do the you know, sous vide pasteurization. It's just kind of a pain because you have to do it multiple times with all the bottles that you're going to have. But you know what? You do what you can with what you have, and either way, you enjoy the process, hopefully, and have a beer or something while you're doing it. So that is my hopefully last video on how to stop fermentation or how to pasteurize. Sorry about no visual aids, really, but I think you get the idea. I don't think you really need a visual aid to understand the process. I tell you what I'll do. I will put the steps for sous vide pasteurization in the description so that you can just, you know, if you want a refresher or, you know, like something just to glance at, but it's really only a few steps. Other than that, thanks for stopping by. Glad you had a time to take a look at my video. Again, if you hit the like button, really appreciate it. Helps me out a lot. Otherwise, I will see you back here next time I put out another video. And as always, happy brewing, and stay safe with your pasteurizing. Bye-bye.